this on? Great. Colleagues, could you take your seats, please? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to first a regularly scheduled meeting of the Newton City Council. We are being both audio taped and videotaped this evening. And once we're done with our business on first and second call tonight, we're going to go into a committee of the whole with the chair of finance presiding to continue our budget deliberations. I do not know whether we're going to finish our budget work this evening or whether we're going to spill over into Wednesday. I do anticipate that we will not be meeting Thursday night unless something greatly unanticipated happens. So with that, we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Danberg, would you be willing to lead us in the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, colleagues. We are joined by, I'm trying to see who we have on Zoom. I see we have Councilor Krinsman's on Zoom. Councilor Downs and Lucas are both in the room. I thought Councilor Lipoff might be on Zoom later, and I know Councilor Kelly was traveling and is delayed this evening. Before we begin with first call, we're going to start with Vice Chair Lucas of Land Use. I'm going to take a moment of presidential privilege to acknowledge that we have a lot of celebrations among us over the past few weeks and the upcoming weeks, and I just want to acknowledge that. Sometimes we focus too much on the negative, and so perhaps we can focus on the positive. So I'm going to start with the youngest celebrant, Councilor Grossman, whose daughter got bat mitzvahed on Saturday morning at Temple Emmanuel. That happens to be my temple. I will say she was absolutely terrific. Of course, there's no surprise because of that, knowing who her mom and dad are, but that was really wonderful. We have 3 high school graduations coming up. Councilor Oliver is a graduate of Newton North. Councilor Krinsman is going to have a graduate of Newton South. And Councilor Kalis is finally out of the school system with his second one from Newton South. We have 2 collegiate graduations. Councilor Leary has a daughter who proudly graduated UMass a short while ago. And Councilor Lipoff celebrated his daughter graduating with a graduate degree from Vanderbilt. And Councilor Gentile, I believe you have a daughter who recently got engaged. Am I correct about that? So congratulations to that as well. So anyways, I just thought we'd add something very positive to all of us. And with that, Councilor Lucas, would you be kind enough to do the first call of land use?
Yes, President Laredo. The Land Use Committee met on May 7th. I have 2 items, one item to report out on first call. Petition 207-24, requests for a special permit to waive 15 parking stalls at 1173, 1177 Walnut Street. That was approved 8-0. Petition 79-24, I believe, is on second call. And I want to assume I have a public hearing to assign.
You do. Go ahead and assign the public hearing, please.
Petition 234-24, requests to extend the non-conforming use by constructing improvements to the clubhouse pavilion, a snack shack, to amend special permit 234-10 and 449-22 at 1897 and 1947 Washington Street. And that is all I have for this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lucas. Councilor Baker with the Zoning and Planning Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the Zoning and Planning Committee report is found on page 112, or at least begins there. And we have two items to report for action tonight. There's item 18224, request for discussion and possible amendments to allow for-profit schools by right. This is Councilors Lucas, Kelly, Laredo, and Lublowitz requesting a discussion with the Planning and Development Department to possibly amend Newton zoning ordinance to allow schools or other educational purposes for profit to be allowed as of right. The committee voted no action necessary, 8-0. The reason behind that, however, is we've already dealt with that item in the comprehensive revisions that we did earlier in the term. So that's the reason for that. The second item is 22524, requesting possible amendments to the short-term rental ordinance. That's Councilors Baker and Oliver on behalf of the Zoning and Planning Committee requesting amendments to the short-term rental ordinance to require that the property owner be listed as the operator, and other amendments to strengthen the ordinances relating to short-term rentals. That item passed by the committee 8-0, and the changes are in the committee report. All other items were held. I do want to mention that we have two public hearings that have previously been assigned, I believe. The first is item 2424, Friends 2. This is a request for discussion and possible ordinance amendments relating to aiding small businesses affected by development. And then the second one is item 7624, Friends 3. This is on page 114. This is discussion and possible amendments to change how building height is measured. That item is scheduled for a public hearing on June 10th. And then finally, just want to indicate to members of the council that on the 28th, the Tuesday after Memorial Day, the committee will meet and we will be taking up the electrification ordinance, also the ordinance relating to energy use reporting, the BERDO ordinance, and also a report on our climate action plan. So those are the items that are going to be set, really take up that entire evening on the 28th. And with that, I just move the report.
Thank you, Chair Baker. Chair Krinsman for the Programs and Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Programs and Services report begins on page 115. The committee met on May 8th. First item is item 192-24. This was authorization to transfer $85,000 for HHS nursing staffing. This item was approved by the committee by a vote of 6-0. Item 197-24, this is requesting authorization to transfer $125,000 for law department legal services. That item was approved by a vote of 6-0. Item 226-24 was a resolution to declare June 9th, 2024, George Mansfield Day. That was approved by the committee by a vote of 6-0. Mr. President, regarding item 200-24, I'd like a suspension of the rules to repoll my committee.
All in favor of suspension of rules to allow Chair Krinsman to poll his committee, please say aye. Aye. Any nays? Go ahead, Councilor Krinsman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Folks on Programs and Services, if you recall, this was the appointment to the Newton Housing Authority. And during our committee deliberations, we amended the item because we thought it was supposed to be a 3-year appointment rather than a 5-year. Well, as it turns out, it was originally supposed to be a 5-year appointment. So what I'd like to do, I think the committee was impressed with the individual, and I'd like to poll the committee to see if folks are okay approving this back to an expiration of 2029. Again, the appointment of Donald Siegel to the Newton Housing Authority.
So any committee members in favor of the motion, please say aye, or if you're a virtual, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. The ayes have it. It's approved. Go ahead, Councilor Krinsman.
Thank you. So item 200-24, this is the appointment of Donald Siegel to the Newton Housing Authority, was unanimously approved by the Programs and Services Committee. With that, I would move the report.
Thank you. Next, Public Safety and Transportation, Chair Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The report begins on page 115. The committee met on May 8th. The First item was held. The second item, 164-24, requesting a discussion with the police department on the work of the dedication to community consultants, was voted no action necessary, 6-0. Item 215-24, appropriation of $1,350,000 for fire rescue overtime, was approved 5-0. Item 219-24, appropriation of $450,000 for police department overtime, was approved 6-0. Oh, and the last item, as I mentioned, was held. We did, for that item that was held, have a pretty extensive discussion with the police chief about the sort of annual statistics. The chief comes in a few times a year to do that. We looked at crashes, types of calls, types of crimes, and numbers in the city. It was pretty interesting discussion. I encourage everybody to look over what we talked about and let us know if you have more questions or information you'd like discussed in future similar discussions. With that, I move the report.
Thank you, Chair Grossman. Next, I have Chair Albright for the Public Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met on May 15th, and the report begins on page 116. And there are several Eversource petitions for grant of locations for undergrounding near the Northland project. So I'll just go through those. 210-24 was an Eversource petition for grant of location for 160 Charlemont Street. That was approved 6-0. 211-24 Eversource petition for grant of location for 50 Tower Road. That was approved 7-0. 213-24 Eversource petition for grant of location for 156 Oak Street. Public Facilities approved 7-0. And 212-24 Eversource petition for grant of location by 90 Christina Street, and that was approved for a vote of 7-0. 220-24 was approval of the installation of two raised intersections at Waverly and Franklin Street and Brookline at Hartman Road, and that was approved by Public Facilities for 8-0. 216-24 is referred to Public Facilities and Finance for the cities to transfer funds for the city's accelerated roads program. And this was approved, I believe it was 8-0. Yes. And 191-24 was an authorization to appropriate and expend $200,000 from the Stormwater Management Operating Reserve for FY24 operating budget. That was also approved 8-0. And that the last item was is on second call. And Mr. President, I have a late filed item to ask for suspension of the rules to accept. Shall I tell you what it is first?
Please tell us what it is and then we'll.
235-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $2,800,000, $274.38 from the June certified free cash account for the Accelerated Roads Program.
Thank you. All in favor of suspending the rules to allow for this late file docket item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
and I move the report.
Thank you, Chair Albright. Next, I have Chair Gentile for the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee report begins on page 118. The first item was 190-24. Her Honor, Mayor requesting authorization to accept and expend a Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism grant for $50,000 for improvements at the Pellegrini Fieldhouse, approved 8-0. 192-24, Her Honor, the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $85,000 from Health and Human Services clinical health full-time salaries account to temporary staffing for nursing staff, approved 8-0. 197-24, authorization to transfer $125,000 for the Law Department legal services, requesting this to transfer $125,000 from full-time salaries to legal services. It was approved 8-0. 204-24, the Comptroller transmitting the annual comprehensive financial report and external audit reports for the city council review and acceptance. That was done by a vote of 8-0. 215-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend $1,350,000 from the June 30th, 2023 certified free cash to fire rescue regular overtime. Approved 8-0. 217-24, Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to transfer the sum of $5,000 from the special election regular overtime account to elections, seasonal wages for the purpose of funding additional salaries required for the presidential primary that was held on March 5th, 2024. That was approved 8-0. 219-24. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend $450,000 from snow and ice to police patrol regular overtime, approved 8-0. Top of page 120. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to enter into a 5-year contract with a substitute staffing vendor for the Newton Public Schools, approved 8-0. And the last item that night was 223-24. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $13,597.21 from June 23 certified free cash to the Newton Public Schools for funds that were collected from the FY23 Help See Textile Collection and Recycling, approved 8-0. And I too would like to request a suspension of the rules to accept late file docket item 235-24, which is a requested appropriation of $2,888,274 for Transportation Network Improvement Program.
Before we take up that motion, Chair Gentile, I believe 219-24 Finance held that. Is that correct?
219-24.
On page 119, the last full item on that page.
No, we approved it. I think that's a mistake. Oh, that's right. You're right. Sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
good.
there was, I stand corrected. No one was there from the police department, so that's the reason that we held it. I apologize.
Understood. No error. It'll go next time. I'm sure we'll
We
take
got it
care
right.
of
We
it.
have it straight now.
And don't disrupt my train of thought here, Councilor Gentile. You have a motion for suspension of rules for a late filed item. Is that correct?
Yes, 235-24.
Before we do this, I'm just going to note that we've been doing a much better job on late filed items. We're seeing far fewer of them. The mayor actually called myself, I believe both Councilors Albright and Gentile, just to apologize for that. It is going to happen from time to time, and that's why we have this late file process. But I, for one, am very appreciative that we're trying to follow our procedure much more carefully, and that goes for councilors as well. So thank you to the administration and thanks to all of you. All in favor of suspension of the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All set? Councilor Gentile, anything else? All right. And Councilor Danberg, real property reuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's no report tonight, but I want to announce that the meeting that was going to be held on Thursday, the 13th, has been moved to Wednesday, the 12th, because of the scheduling conflict. So the next meeting of RPR, Real Property Reuse, will be Wednesday, the 12th of June. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to ask our deputy clerk, since our regular clerk is at a clerk's conference this week. Go ahead, please.
Councilor Albright,
Aye.
Councilor Baker,
Aye.
Councilor Bigsby,
Aye.
Councilor Block,
However, I'm recused on 164-24 and 215-24.
Counselor Damberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz, oh, sorry, Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly, Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver, Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
First call passes 23-0.
Thank you very much. Before we, Counselor Albright? There was an abstention on 2 items, recusal on 2 items. Correct? So there's, so would you just, so it's 23-0 with 1 absent, except on 2 items where it was 22, 1 recusal, 1 absent, correct? Okay. Is everyone clear on that? Yes, Counselor Baker?
Just want to make one other scheduling announcement that may be of value to colleagues. The Zoning and Planning Committee in the last part of June will not meet on its regular night, but we'll be meeting on Thursday, June 27th. We're going to be talking about the process of engagement for the community with large projects with the planning department. This is an issue that's come up, and we wanted to set aside a time when members of the council had no other commitments formally scheduled that evening. And also relating to it is probably preceding it will be a presentation regarding NewGov, the process of putting everything into the computer relating to property in the city so that you can see what applications are pending and information about it. It's gotten quite advanced, and we thought it would be useful to have a presentation about that again on a night when the committee could attend. And then finally, those of you who are interested in the BERDA ordinance, my expectation is that we will have a robust and full presentation of it at our meeting at the after Memorial Day on Tuesday, but probably have not act on that item. We may act on electrification until the following meeting when we can have some more opportunity for comment and thought. So I just wanted to indicate that process to you because that's not yet available on the calendar.
Thank you.
Tuesday, the 28th. I'm reminded by my able colleague who's better at calendars than I am.
Thank you, Counselor Baker. Before we go to second call, I just want to remind everyone of several city events that I hope many of us can attend. On Sunday, there's the annual wreath laying, starts off at Forte Park on Sunday morning. A somber and very important observance. And then for a more fun event, Sunday afternoon is Memorial Day Parade. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity of marching it, it's great. Nothing like getting to actually march in a parade, makes you feel like you're a little kid. And then Monday, we are at the Newton Cemetery for the service there, which is also, in my experience, very moving service. And Newton Cemetery obviously is a very beautiful place. And then on a celebratory note, on the 3rd, before our council meeting, we have high school graduation. Newton North is the 3rd. That's a Monday night. We don't start Monday night till 7:45. Graduation usually finishes around 7 or 7:15. So I hope many of us can make graduation. It's really important in my view that we are all there or try to be there. And then on Thursday night, June 6th is Newton South graduation. You should have all received your invitations for Newton North at least. Hopefully Newton South will be not far behind. So with that, we're going to go to second call. Vice Chair Lucas, there's an item from land use on second call.
Yes, thank you, President Laredo. On second call is petition 79-24, request to amend special permit 395-22 to allow for a cash payment in lieu of providing IZ units at 136-144 Hancock Street. This is the Walker Center. And this was put on second call. This was put on subject to second call because the petitioner submitted a letter of withdrawal without prejudice 20 minutes before the start of the meeting. And several counselors on the committee wanted to view the letter before voting on it. But instead, we changed it to subject to second call. And hopefully everyone has read the letter. And just for the record, the Walker Center project is coming back to land use in a couple of weeks. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you. Counselor Gentile, you want to be heard on this item?
Yes, thank you. So the Walker Center project, the developer is Civico, came before us well over a year ago. It's in my ward. I really didn't comment on it because I was okay with the project. I voted for it. I was pleased that there would be 2 affordable units on site, which is the way that the special permit was passed. Excuse me, then, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, 6 months ago anyway, the petitioner came back and requested that instead of providing the 2 units on site, that they be allowed to make a cash contribution as is allowed by our ordinances. Wasn't my idea. I was perfectly comfortable with what the special permit had called for. But they made the case to the land use committee that financially they could not make the project go forward, placing the 2 units on site. And rather than end up with another project being stalled and constantly hearing about the need for additional housing, I was at least willing to take a look at the cash in lieu of payment instead of the 2 units. I'm only sharing this information because I don't want people to think that that I would have ever been opposed to having the 2 units on site. I've always felt that that was the right decision, and that's what should happen, as did many of my colleagues. As far as the motion goes tonight, I'm going to vote against it with all due respect to my colleague. The letter that he referenced about withdrawing the request and going back to the original plan, modified, that came in 20 minutes after the meeting started, which was a clear violation of our rules. And I believe that our rules should be followed consistently. And I objected to the fact that land use was taking it up. And the interesting thing is, petitioner didn't gain anything, didn't gain any time whatsoever, because the next meeting of land use, and I'm not even sure if they're taking it up, is until June the 4th. So it could have waited. And that was what my problem was. So the petitioner that night used that as an opportunity to summarize a new plan. It's substantially different from the original plan in that it adds 24% more bedrooms, and they need to further develop it. So again, they needed time to do things. So I don't understand what the rush was. So I'm going to vote for it because it never should have been taken up in the first place. The last point I want to make is to try and educate myself about this payment in lieu of taxes. I attended no less than 6 meetings in like February,
Counselor
March.
Gentile, you're out of time. Would
Just
you
2
like?
more minutes,
All
please, and I'll
right,
be done.
Counselor Gentile's requested 2 more minutes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed. The ayes have it. Go ahead, please.
So, now where was I?
I'll tell you exactly where you were, Counselor Gentile. You were talking about the square footage and go on.
All right, so, yeah, but that wasn't my, anyway, pardon? I attended 6 meetings of the Housing Partnership Group Committee and the Housing Trust. Now, if you want to see some puzzled faces of people, when I walked into a housing partnership meeting, there's a little bit of, what's he doing here? But anyway, I attended 6 meetings and actually was pretty interested and I learned a lot. And I want to tell you about one situation when I almost fell off my chair. And that's when the proposal was first being presented to the housing partnership. And Chuck Eisenberg said, so the petitioner came in and said that they can't afford to build the project. Well, have we looked into that? Has anybody investigated that? And I almost fell off my chair. Because if you've been around here for a while, there are times when I've said, why do we just accept what a developer tells us as far as financial feasibility? And it reminded me, I'm sure you remember, we used to have somebody that was a consultant to the planning department that would evaluate these projects for financial viability. And I don't know why or when it went away, but I believe that that's an extremely important function. We have the ability to charge the petitioner for the review. I can't remember the fellow's last name, but he used to review these things for us all the time and give us a report. So anyway, I hope the land use committee will give some thought to that and for future developments instead of us just accepting what we're told about the finances of a project.
Thank you, Counselor Gentile. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this item? Counselor Downs.
Thank you, President Laredo. Like you, I sit on the Land Use Committee. Counselor Gentile's recitation of the facts is accurate. I think the reason why I will vote for this to be withdrawn without prejudice is I want further discussion on it. And I do not want to see this project become an example of demolition by neglect. These are historic buildings. They're quite visible from Grove Street, right next to the Williams School. And I want to make sure that we put together something, and I'm willing to have a discussion about how we determine financial viability outside of what developers tell us. But I will remind you that some developers have sold off to people who can privately finance because they can't do it otherwise. And a number of projects have either been delayed or postponed outside of this one all across the city. So I want to make sure that whatever we do as a council, we are not endangering historic and prominent buildings in our city and delaying them becoming housing. Any housing is better than no housing, just because we weren't willing to take a look at a withdrawal without prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Anyone else? Yes, Counselor Maliki.
I guess I have more of a question than a comment. When we're asked to approve a motion to withdraw without prejudice, what's the consequences of saying no? Is it that they cannot submit this?
The consequence of saying no on a motion to withdraw without prejudice is the item's still active before us. They don't have to go forward with it, I suppose. It is customary, I think I can speak for land use process, it's customary to allow any petitioner who wants to voluntarily withdraw something to do so without prejudice so they can come back with a new proposal and there's no risk that it's seen as overlapping with the prior proposal that was withdrawn and therefore barred by our rules from being considered. It's something we do, I think, almost invariably, and it was in fact, that question, if I recall, was asked and discussed at the committee hearing. So the consequence of this is, it's as if it was never filed. They already have an existing special permit. If they want to come back to amend the special permit, they need to file a new docket item. If they think they can make modifications within the scope of the existing special permit, that will be up to inspectional services, and the Commissioner of Inspectional Services most likely would ask us for a consistency ruling, which, as you know, is guidance, but not instruction, but guidance to the commissioner as to what we think. I do suspect, given the magnitude of the proposed change, this is likely to come back as I think as a new item, but certainly I would expect it, if not a new item, to come back to a consistency ruling. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I guess what I'm really asking is if we voted against the petition to withdraw, or if we voted for the petition to withdraw, does either one of those prevent them from coming back again with the same request to do dollars in lieu of units? And it's in lieu of units, not taxes.
If it's withdrawal without prejudice, there's no restriction on coming back. As a practical matter, they're not. I understand Councilor Gentile's objection is, if I'm not mistaken, in large part it's a process issue of how this was done. And that certainly is a legitimate reason to vote against this, or vote to send it back to, move to send it back to committee if you'd prefer. All of us will have different views, I suspect, on whether that's necessary in this instance or not. Councilor Gentile's expressed his.
Okay, I think I'll be voting no, because it seems that is the way to express that I don't want this particular request to come back.
That's fine. Thank you for expressing that. And as you all know, on land use matters, if you're going to vote against something, you need to say it publicly. Councilor Gentile, you're out of time. How much more do you need?
30 seconds.
All in favor of giving Councilor, let's give him a whole minute. All in favor for a minute, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Go, Councilor Gentile.
I just wanted to share with my colleagues that the petition, it is my understanding, has already applied for a consistency ruling. That's one. And then secondly, the first item on our new docket is an item from the petitioner's attorney and the 3 Ward 4 councilors for an update on the new plan, which I knew land use was going to do anyway, but it also talks about public comment. Because that was the other thing that kind of upset me, is I wanted to make sure that our constituents had an opportunity to weigh in on the new plan. So this is the way that we are going about it, so our constituents will know about the revised plan.
Thank you, Councilor Gentile. Councilor Farrell.
Thank you, President. I too am going to vote nay on this. I agree with Councilor Gentile that the process needs to be much clearer and follow established rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Farrell. Councilor Downs. Oh, I'm sorry. Chair Kelly has joined us. Chair Kelly, and then Councilor Leary.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been here for a little while. I know it's hard to see people on the screen when you're standing there. I experienced that also. I would like to speak for why I will be voting in favor of accepting this request to withdraw without prejudice. I have no argument about anything Councilor Gentile or Councilor Downs has said. I'd just like to fill in a few more of the compelling points from me. One is that the plan, as it seems, and I'm not sure, President Laredo, you might know more than me if you think a substantial change is going to be submitted. That was not my understanding, but I would like to give them the time to develop the plans, where right now the unit number stands the same as what was submitted before. The FAR stands the same or a little less. The footprint stands the same or a little less. The bedroom count increases, which in my view, is actually a good thing. And the IZ units are being allocated according to the criteria required about equal distribution and size and quality and all of that. As you alluded to, Mr. President, I haven't yet seen us refuse a request submitted by a petitioner to withdraw without prejudice. I would like to give them the time to work on the details of this and come back and present it to us. As Councilor Gentile noted, I definitely want the time between the land use meeting and the next meeting for the public to have the ability to learn about the changes and to have input. So I will be taking comment on June 4th. And for all those reasons, I will definitely be voting yes to accept this. That night, I really did hear and consider Councilor Gentile's concerns around the late filing of the request. And I lean to you as former president, current president, and former chair of land use, and Jonah Temple from the law department to give your input. And it's that night, it was clear that second call was an appropriate way to go. It provided the right opportunity, that it was an appropriate thing for us to discuss and vote on that night. So I just want the rest of the counselors who were not at that meeting to be aware of all of those things. And those are the reasons why I will be voting in favor tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Kelly. And the reasons you articulated as to why you might find this consistent is, of course, exactly what we discussed in the course of the consistency ruling. I think Counselor Gentile's item is seeking a discussion. A public hearing is probably the appropriate way to actually have a hearing, because otherwise a consistency ruling is just an informal process. But that's a matter of procedure. I think we can handle offline. I think you and the vice chair will talk through that, and I'm sure we'll have the appropriate discussion with the appropriate public involvement. Next, I have Councilor Leary and then Councilor Kalis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief, as Chair Kelly has already spoken on, made many of the points that I would have made as a member. I am a member of land use and do remember the discussion quite well. I would urge my colleagues not to vote no. This is a really important project in Ward 4, and I, as the Ward 4 counselors are much more aware of than I am. And I agree, it was irritating to get that letter so late, but it's really not a reason to vote no, to withdraw without prejudice, which I can't remember us ever doing before. And I really want to see this project move ahead smoothly. I was actually, even though the letter came that late, I was happy that they were going to keep the units on site, because that's really what I think we all wanted. And that's what they're going to do. And they're going to increase bedroom size, which I again think can be an improvement. It's right near a school and it will allow more families to live there. So please don't vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. Vice President Kalis.
I don't know how I follow that, but I'm leaning towards voting no, primarily because of the process issue. And from what I understand is we have a process that should specifically be followed. If it's not followed, then you have other petitioners potentially doing the same thing. And I think that we have to establish what those rules are and maintain those. I do want the project to go forward, and it sounds to me from the conversation tonight that it will, in that it'll come back. But I do feel like the process should be followed as we have it outlined. Thank you.
All set. Anyone else wish to speak on the item? Remotely seeing none, I'm going to ask our deputy clerk to call the roll. An aye vote is in favor of allowing the motion to withdraw without prejudice. A no vote is against the motion, a request to withdraw without prejudice. Go ahead, please.
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker,
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Nay.
Counselor Gentile,
No.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
No.
Counselor Kelly, Counselor Kritzman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff, Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
No.
Counselor Mickley,
No.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
The approval to withdraw without prejudice passed 19-5.
Thank you. Our last item is a item out of Public Facilities Committee, Chair Albright. And once we conclude that item, we're going to adjourn into a committee of, we're going to adjourn into a committee of the whole. Go ahead, please, Councilor.
Thank you very much. This is item 189-24. Your Honor, the Mayor requesting the approval of the 75% design for the Washington Street pilot. This was approved 7-0 in Public Facilities. And I'll just give you the highlights of the presentation and the report. Director Kyra and Deputy Director Kyra and consultants gave a presentation on the reason for the project, which was to make the 3/4 of a mile roughly safer for bikes, for pedestrians, for cars, to make it more attractive. The project will be done with temporary materials so that we can really learn from the project and move things around if necessary during the length of the pilot project. The Washington Street will become one lane of travel in each direction with turning lanes as appropriate, most of them left turn lanes heading east. There'll be a shared bike path on the south side of the street because this will be lessen the turning conflicts for the bike lanes and the cars. There'll be a buffer for the bike lane. There will be bus stop improvements. There will be landscaping across the turnpike, and the landscaping, which we discussed a bit. There'll be trees, but there won't be the kind of trees that would cause conflicts with the train tracks, as we all know that all the trees had a haircut on that side of the street by the MBTA. There will be considerable metrics to measure whether or not this is a successful pilot. The budget estimate we learned is approximately 1.5 million with additional contingency funds. The available funds are ARPA funds, and it's 2.7 million. And I think that would describe the project.
Thank you. Councilor Oliver?
Great, thank you, Mr. President. I put this on second call following the meeting at Public Facilities, during which there were a couple of parts of that conversation that I found to be personally quite concerning. There was confusion about the budget, sources of funding, specifics about the metrics, the specifics around how and what changes were going to be able to be made during the pilot. Since that time, I think that was Wednesday night, I've had 3 or 4 exchanges so far with Director Martin to start to clarify all the details, so on and so forth, and we're continuing to go through that conversation. There are still quite a few things that I need answers to, and several of my colleagues do here in the room as well. We need to understand queuing, how that's going to be measured, when that's going to be measured. I want to understand much more clearly how and where and when we are going to be gathering traffic counts. This is so much more than just a pilot. This is how we learn what it is we're actually doing. What are the intended and unintended consequences of the pilot? The changes, very significant changes to a very heavily traveled road. I firmly believe that we're on the right track. I don't want anybody here to misunderstand that I'm against this project, because I am not against it. I just think we have some more work to do to fine tune this pilot so that when we all are sitting 3 years from whenever this, whenever this pilot is done, it's a 3-year long pilot. When this is done, I guarantee we're not only going to be shaping 3/4 of a mile of Washington Street, we're going to be taking these learnings and trying to apply them to other parts of the city. And so far, we're not ready to do that, in my opinion. And I apologize, but I'm not sorry, but I'm placing this item on charter.
Okay, the
Or
item
chartering the-
chartered, as we all know, that ends discussion for this evening on this item. Counselor Danberg, can I get a motion to recess and go into a committee of the whole?
Motion to recess.
All right. All in favor of recess, please say aye. We're recessed. Counselor Gentile, all yours.
Aye.
Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute recess to let everyone get organized, stretch their legs, and then we'll resume the budget deliberations.
Does he know that?
I don't know.
Bottom right.
So the other night, Carol, we're ready to get going. See, this isn't muted. Yeah, it's muted now. Okay. Okay, we are back in committee of the whole, continuing our budget discussion from last Thursday. What I'd like to do this evening is to review the responses that we have received from the administration. And obviously, if there are questions or comments, we'll entertain those. And then hopefully we can move the particular department that we had originally submitted a resolution. So for instance, the first department in the order in which we took them up last Thursday was the city clerk. There was a resolution requesting a review of the workflow, structure, and job description of the city clerk's department. And the response from the administration we received earlier today. Are there any comments? Because eventually these budgets that had resolutions, remember, we did not vote. We did not take a straw vote because we wanted to hear back from the administration before we asked you for a vote. So the chairs or the vice chairs are in the same position as the rest of us, that they are seeing the responses for the first time. So I'm not going to ask them necessarily to summarize. You've all had them to take a look at. So on the resolution regarding the city clerk's office, are there any questions or comments on the response? Are people basically fine with the response from the administration? If they are, we can take a vote on it. I'm looking online. I don't see any hands. Council Albright.
So one of the things that didn't get mentioned in the response, although maybe now I'm seeing it, working with never mind, it is here, working with a small group of counselors. Okay, never mind.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, there is also a slight adjustment to the bottom line number. You ready to explain it?
The city clerk's budget on the draft appropriation schedule is correct at 2,479,397. However, in the breakout of the departmental budget, the administration and financial services made some last minute changes and they did not insert the updated department number. And that is why when it went through committee, a number, do not have that number, the higher number.
Well, correct. Why don't we just make sure
Okay.
we have the correct?
Yeah. So the correct number, as I had mentioned, is 2,479,397.
All right, so can I get a motion to amend, and we received a memo from Ms. Lemieux on this earlier in making the change or the requested change. So can I get a motion to substitute the correct request, which is 2,479,397?
So moved.
Okay, motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Kalis. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of amending the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the item is amended. Any further discussion on the department budget? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the recommended budget as
So
amended?
moved.
Moved by Council Lobovitz, seconded by Councilor Oliver. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is in the Human Resources Department. This was a request for $25,000, which was initiated by Council Oliver for some training money. And the response is obviously attached. My understanding is that the administration is certainly open to it. They wanted to do a little bit more work and research over what is the proper training. And the other thing that I believe I just know this from a discussion, I don't know if it's in the response, is that there's a thought that it would be helpful if we're going to do this, that it would be a collaborative effort with the school committee. And which was something that I thought made sense. So anyway, so that was the response from the administration. Are there any comments or questions on the administration? Council Oliver.
Thank you, Counselor. I believe that all the information I was looking for is here. To your point, or the conversation that you're referring to, the school committee is also aware of the training. And I have kind of mentioned this to Chair Presky a few times. As I mentioned earlier, NPS has already gone through this training. So it does seem to me that there's a fairly obvious choice for what training and who to facilitate should be, but I'm totally open to better, perhaps, options. So this makes sense to me. Everything that's in here is, I would consider to be kind of a home run. But thank you.
Okay. If there are no further comments, the recommended or requested proposed budget is for $2,654,549. May I have a motion, please? Motion to approve, Counsel Leary, seconded by Counsel Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Oh,
HR.
I gave you the wrong number.
Sorry, I was slow to that one.
I gave you the wrong number. You have it there?
Yeah.
Right, 1,000,003. The chair gave you the wrong number for human resources. The correct number is $1,311,303. Can I have a motion on that number? Motion by Counsel Lucas, seconded by Counsel Leary. All those in favor of that number, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. The next item is planning. And planning was resolution number 8. There was a request to add an additional FTE to the economic development team. And we have obviously a response back from the administration. Are there any comments on the response? Seeing none? Can we vote on the recommended budget? What was it? Okay, the recommended or approved, but the recommended budget is for $2,654,549. Okay, may I have a motion to approve that item or that amount? Yes.
It looks like that number's different from my budget book. Has it been adjusted? This 2,006,354 is what I have on the budget.
My budget book has that same number.
The book is 2,006,354.
Council Leary, I think that's the number without the conservation, ZBA, economic development, and historical.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at that. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
All right, we all set? 2,654? Okay. Motion's been made and approved for the recommended budget, which is $2,654,549. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, the next item was Public Works. This was resolution number 6. requesting a traffic light at the intersection of Walnut and Center Streets. One number 4. Thanks. First one is resolution number 4, which was the intersection at Washington Street and Lowell Avenue will be added to the supplemental capital improvement plan. This is the discussion we had where we were reminded that there was a fund from the Trio development that was a source of revenue to do this project. Any comments on the administration's response? Council Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank everyone for voting for this. I know lots of people have wanted to see this intersection improved. I have not had a chance to read the response just because we got it late and I was busy between work and getting here and first and second call items. But I'm going to follow up with DPW and the administration just so that we can get a better sense of time as to when it is going to be improved. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, we have 2 other resolutions before I ask for a vote. So the next one is budget resolution number 6, which is a requesting, I think it's an upgraded traffic light at intersection of Walnut and Center Streets. Any comments on that response? Councilor Downs?
I'm encouraged by the administration's response. I also want to float the idea as my colleagues are thinking about this intersection, which is less than a block from an intersection with a double signal now with the MassDOT improvements to Needham and Winchester Street, that we might actually improve traffic operations there with no signal at this location so that it operates as one, since we have the other ones further down, and that should be at least be evaluated as part of this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, it does say that the supplemental CIP will add this signal as a potential future standalone project. The third item is resolution number 10. This was the request to increase the traffic calming amount from $400,000 in the FY25 budget to $600,000. And the way that I read it is that the administration is reluctant to add the $200,000 to this year's operating budget, but that once free cash is certified next fall, that they expect to submit an item for an additional $200,000. So I think we can probably hold them to that response. Council Greenberg.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the administration for finding a roundabout way to do that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I believe those are the 3 resolutions that were submitted for Public Works. So at this time, all right, so we have, and the comptroller is suggesting that we do these 4 areas separately. It's the general fund money, and then we have water, sewer, and stormwater funds that we need to also approve. So can we get a vote on the first recommended amount of $34,116,319? Can I get a motion? Motion made by Counsel Albright, seconded by Counsel Lucas. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, next would be the water fund. Yes. Yes, Council Downs?
Chair, I just want to make sure you understand that I have to recuse myself from the water and sewer votes,
Yes,
so I will be recused.
okay.
Thanks.
Cassidy, you have that, right? Okay, as far as our enterprise funds, first one is the water fund, and the requested appropriation is $28,318,883. Any comments on that recommended amount? As you know, we approved the rates at a meeting about a week ago, so that's been done. And this is the amount that we need now to fund to support the rates that we've approved. Any questions? Can I get a motion then? Motion to approve, Counsel Lobovitz, seconded by Counsel Albright. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next is the sewer budget. Sewer recommended proposal budget is $34,595,837. Any questions on that? Comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion on that item? Motion to approve by Counsel Leary, seconded by Counsel Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And we have one recused. Okay. Next item is the Stormwater Fund, which is proposed at $5,561,408. Any questions or comments on the Stormwater Fund? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion? Motion by Counsel Leary, seconded by Counsel Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes, well, unanimously with one recusal. No recusal on stormwater? Motion passes unanimously, no recusal. Okay, that takes care of Public Works. The last, I believe, the last resolution was the library. Which is the second resolution number 2. And are there any questions? Are there any questions on the response?
So my only question was, it says in here that the library board of trustees determines the appropriate sources of the additional funds, which was surprising to me because the mayor doesn't get to choose the source of funds. You know the answer to that question? Do you know the answer to that question?
I do not. I know they have some of their own funding. I know they have a library state aid grant each year, but I was not aware that the trustees decide on the different.
So if the library trustees said we want it out of free cash, the mayor would have to do it? So they have the ability of the funds that they can control, like the library state aid.
The
They-
library state aid and
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, the proposed budget for the library is
I have a
6,561,000.
question.
Excuse,
Over here.
Council Kalis, sorry about that.
Yeah, when I read that response, I just wasn't clear. There, are you getting the money or not? Yes?
The way I read it was that, given the formula that the state has for libraries, we have to actually increase the collection by $68,000. So that the money has to come from these other sources that she's identified.
Thank you.
All set? Okay. Then may I get a motion to approve the proposed budget, which is $6,561,717.
So moved.
Council Humphrey moves approval, seconded by Council Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. I believe that those are the responses to the resolutions. What I want to do is to get into some of the budgets that we have yet to talk about so far, and then we'll save a little time so we can talk about the resolutions that have come in recently. I think we may have three. So the next item in terms of going through the book would be the Community Preservation Program.
Chairman, the Community Preservation Program, and I'll get to the right page in a minute, but just to get the number out, it's $5,010,119. And as members of the council may recall, this is predominantly the fund available from state matching funds plus the amount of a surcharge on the Newton property tax. And it also includes an amount set aside for program administration, which is a modest portion of it. We had a presentation in committee, which is summarized in the committee report. It's really, I think, an important opportunity for our city. We've used it time and again for all sorts of good ideas and good projects. Therefore, I would be glad to move that as a straw vote or just to report it to the full committee of the whole. I'm sort of rusty on my process, so I'll be glad to answer any questions if any members of the council have any.
Chairman Baker, can you give us the number again that you seem to have? Because it doesn't seem to jive what we have in the book.
Well, I'm actually operating off the number that was given me by the clerk's office, so I hope that it was 5,010,019, 119.
Yeah.
That's what I assume we're dealing with at this point. But let me go to.
So we have 5,135,060. So
Yeah, and I honestly don't know the variation why we have two different numbers in the, I think our conversation, I was operating on the assumption that the sheet we got from the clerk was the updated accurate number. The number in the budget book, as you quite properly point out, is 5,135,000. So I'm not quite sure what the discrepancy is, to be honest. I think the sense of the committee was we wanted to support the item as presented, but it looks like we've got two different ones. I don't know if the controller can shed any light on this. Unless the clerk summary is just a typo.
Thank you. My records indicate that the CPA budget should be the $5,135,060.
Okay.
That was the number that I was provided by the CPC.
Well, that's what's in the budget book, but I was, the reason I gave the other number was that the sheet that we got summarizing all the departments that we're going, is the order of March had a different number, and I assumed that was corrected, but I will modify my report to include the number that you just indicated and what the budget book indicates, unless there's some reason to understand where this other number comes from.
My suggestion is that we go with the number that is in the budget book.
That's
And
fine.
if for some reason we find out that there was a mistake made, then obviously we'll change it to the lower figure.
That suits me fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any questions for the chairman regarding community preservation line item? Council Krinsman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to suggest, I think Ms. Lemieux is in the attendees, and if there are questions or discrepancies, we may want to, sometimes we have her here to review those questions and just confirm the final amounts.
Usually she speaks up if there's something, but do we need to,
I think we need to promote her to panelist to allow her to speak up.
Cassidy, can you do that? Ms. Lemieux?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We believe the number is 5135060, exactly what's in the book. We have not been made aware of any changes to that number.
Okay. All right, so can I get a motion for the $5,135,060 and I guess it's 28 cents? Yes, motion's made by Council Leary, seconded by Council Lucas. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor as to approve the amount proposed, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, next is the Public Buildings Department.
Would you like me to give the report, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So we reviewed the public buildings budget. It's $6,624,659, which represents a 6% increase, and it was approved 6-0. Mr. Morse, Commissioner Morse reviewed all of the work that the Public Buildings Department is doing now and will continue to be doing. He reviewed the small projects, the $75,000 or less project. He reviewed all the design projects, which include Countryside, Franklin, Horace Mann, and construction projects, which include Lincoln Elliott and the Senior Center. I guess now it's the Cooper Center, the Gaff Pool, and the project that's under study, which is the police facility. He also, and Councilor Lipoff, you should tell this to your sister. He also talked about the lessons learned database that he continues to use and find value in, even to this day. That's
great to hear.
And I move the report.
All set? Are there any questions for the chair on the Public Buildings Department? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the proposed request, which is $6,624,659? Approved by Counselor Downs, seconded by Counselor Oliver. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Next is the Police Department. Counsel Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The discussion about the police and fire budget was a little unusual this year in that we started the discussion talking just about the topic of the dispatch bureau, since changes to the proposed staffing and arrangements to get to a healthier dispatch level of staffing involved both departments. It really is the most significant change to both budgets this year and involves global challenges faced with dispatch staffing and the city's efforts to develop an interim strategy. Over the past 3 years, police departments across the country, which manage dispatch here in Newton, have had difficulty recruiting and the inability to hire qualified officers. And dispatchers need to be on every minute of their shift. We've been staffed at such a low level that we have had to require some of our dispatchers to work double shifts, which means 16 hours of being on, which is a lot to ask of people and quite stressful on them. As an interim measure, the city's entered into agreements for at least 3 years, and Ms. Lemieux estimated it could be up to approximately 5 years as an interim measure with the police and fire unions to allow personnel in those two departments, if they're certified or trained, to take dispatch shifts on a voluntary basis. And the two chiefs, Chief Carmichael and Chief Gentile, also came to the mayor proposing to use 2 dispatch consoles at Station 3, the fire headquarters, to handle fire and ambulance calls because we don't have the space or facility accommodations to add more consoles to our current dispatch bureau at the police station. So we have, as I mentioned, budgeted for 2 dispatch positions there at Station 3. Where it concerns the police budget specifically, because then we moved on and spoke just individually about the police budget and then the fire department. The police department employs 192 full-time employees and 56 part-time employees currently. We talked a fair amount about the Dedication to Communities grant that has allowed our department to begin the community policing initiative. And we talked about the various really positive elements of communication between the police, our community, many counselors that attended this programming to move our 21st century policing goals forward. Meaningfully, the police department this past year moved away from a national accreditation standard to focus more on a state accreditation, because the post, which is the peace officer standards and training requirements, are much more aligned with what Massachusetts is doing. So the police department is focused on 4 particular goals: providing 21st century policing and community policing, supporting our police officers with up-to-date facilities, training, equipment, and technology, focusing on recruiting, hiring, retention, and diversity, providing transparency, and meeting the post standards. The committee took a straw vote to approve the police department budget of $27,051,270, a 3.74% increase from fiscal year 2024, and that passed unanimously. And with that, I would happily take any questions, and if you need a motion, happy to do that as well.
Thank you. Any questions regarding the proposed police budget? Okay. As was already stated, the requested amount is $27,051,270. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Grossman, seconded by Counselor Downs. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the police budget is approved unanimously. Next would be the fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The fire department employs 207 full-time employees, which includes 4 temporary firefighters full-time. Those are positions that we approved some time ago to allow the fire department to be able to get a little bit ahead of hiring, knowing that they were going to have a certain amount of retirements and vacancies and in an attempt to get to full staffing. Notably, this year, well, in the past 5 months, we've had 14 structure fires. In 2023, there were 16 structure fires over the course of the entire year. So this has been, as the chief stated, the busiest 5-month stretch for firefighting in our city in the past 25 years. This summer, the fire department is anticipating receiving 2 new apparatus, Engine 7 and Ladder 3. We talked about their main goals, which include providing outstanding emergency response and mitigation, preparing for emergencies, hiring, retaining, training, and providing the wellness of the fire department members, and upgrading and improving the fire radio frequencies. We did also, as I described earlier in the police budget, talk about how our fire department is poised to play a role in helping to alleviate the current dispatch situation and how that plays into an increase in staffing in the fire department. The committee took a straw vote to accept the fire department budget of $31,278,241, a 7.15% increase from fiscal year 2024, which passed unanimously.
Are there any questions on the fire department budget? Counsel Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wanted to ask, if I may, the Chair of Public Safety about the residential inspections and fire prevention. I've just been concerned that there's been a number of fires in Ward 1, and I wasn't able to dive deeply into this to participate in the discussion, but did anything come up regarding any more residential inspections or prioritizing more fire prevention and safety?
We have talked about some of those things. To be honest, I can't recall if it was specifically within the confines of the budget discussion. We've had the fire chief in on a pretty regular basis over our last few meetings, and we did talk about this topic. So interestingly, there didn't seem to be any common themes about what led to the uptick in structure fires in the last 5 months. We talked a little bit about lithium-ion battery fires because that seemed to be a common source, particularly when people use charging devices and don't pair them properly with the electronics that they go with. But that was not at the core of these particular events that we're talking about. We did talk a bit about some different ideas of getting more fire prevention education out there, about providing both information or even making available or perhaps available for purchase, even things like fire extinguishers and smoke detectors at community, fairs and village days and things like that. And the chief was definitely open and amenable to that. Other members of the committee, I see Councilor Lucas nodding because I believe you asked that question during, was it that meeting or an earlier meeting? I can't remember. But if you want to share anything else that you remember, I may have forgotten. They're certainly looking into this and trying to figure out what it is that, was making this a busier period of time. And I think as they identify more common themes, they're very willing and ready and interested in addressing them.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Just to briefly follow up what Chair Grossman said, yes, that's correct. I can't remember if that was at the budget meeting or a prior meeting, but I did bring up the idea of the fire department having a display at the many village days and community events that are coming up, just so that, you know, if they could present fire extinguishers, fire alarms, things that every household should have in their kitchen or near a fireplace or wherever. I did mention that to them and they were open to that suggestion. So that's all.
Okay. Council Block?
Thank you, Chair. I'm recused from this item.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, the recommended amount is 31,278,241. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Council Grossman, seconded by Council Lobovitz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And one recused, correct? So passes unanimously with one Council Block being recused. Okay, next item is inspectional services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think on this one, the clerk's sheet and the budget book agree. The amount an issue is $2,138,498, excuse me, $2,138,498. This is the department that members of the council know handles all the building permits and enforcement matters. And the commissioner came and presented his report. It's part of the summary. It's summarized in the written report, but there are really no questions for him that would change any of the recommendations in the department. The one issue that we were concerned about that is continuing to be a question is the ability to hire someone to do the zoning and other enforcement activity explicitly. They've had that position advertised. The last understanding I had from the commissioner after our budget discussion is that they've had potential inquiries from 3 people and they actually may be able to fill that position. I don't know where they are at the moment on that process, but at least that was more encouraging than we heard at the actual budget conversation, because this is a position that we have argued in this council really is vital to the success of this particular department. And I should just mention that he will be available to present the whole NewGov system to us on that Thursday, the 28th of June for the committee, but anyone else on the council who wants to hear that. So that's the recommendation of the committee.
Okay, any questions for Chairman Baker? Council Laredo.
Chair Baker, was there any discussion about proactive enforcement of existing special permits?
We didn't get into that conversation this time. I think it really got subsumed because they've been having enough trouble trying to keep track of the existing enforcement matters. Perhaps Councilor Albright remembers better than I, but the real problem is filling that position. Until we get that position in place, I think that's the a person in that position rather. It's been they're clearing some of the current matters, but I don't think they've had really the ability to go back and look at special permits. Councilor Albright, is that accurate?
No, well, I specifically asked a question about special permits, and the answer was it's going to be discussed during the presentation, and it never was discussed. So we really didn't get an answer at all to the issue of special permits.
You know, I'll just note that this is a discussion that those of us who've been around for a little while, we've had multiple times. And I would hope with the institution of the new software system, that we'd rethink this. We're clearly not going to do it this calendar year, fiscal year, but going forward, I personally remain very concerned that we pass special permits all the time, and the only way they get enforced is through complaints. I think that is personally, I find that a very negative system, because it really encourages neighbors to complain about neighbors, which I happen to think is a really bad way to build community. And it would be much better if we had some spot check involved, similar to how the tax authorities do audits. It makes sense and it keeps people in compliance, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? All right, so the recommended amount is $2,138,498. All those in favor, or can I get a motion? Motion from Council Leary, seconded by Council Lucas. All those in favor of the proposed amount, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Next item is Health and Human Services.
I believe that is me, Mr. Chairman, right?
Yes, sir.
And let me just ask, do you want to, or maybe after Health and Human Services, do you want to do school since we have a resolution? Do you want to do this, the department that we have resolutions for?
No, we have time, so I think we're almost through the rest of the items, and then the last bit of business will be the resolutions.
Okay, no problem. So Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 8th to discuss the budget for the Health and Human Services Department. Commissioner Linda Walsh presented the budget to the committee. I would note this is her final presentation as she is retiring. She spoke about school health programs and the mental health needs of students, which are a top priority for the department. We did have a good discussion in committee, which included discussion about the school nurses' challenges that they face, about some recent deaths in the community, and challenging upcoming summer with temporary absences in the department. We also talked about challenges in the public health department, including emerging infectious diseases and climate change. And we discussed staffing and the loss of community host agreement funds. Ultimately, the committee straw vote was 6-0 to approve the budget of $5,161,765, which represents a 0.59% decrease from last year's original budget.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none.
I'll move approval.
Thank Councilor Chairman Princeman moves approval. Seconded by Councilor Kalis. All those in favor of the $5,161,765 proposed request, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Senior Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is me again. Again, Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 8th to discuss the Senior Services Department budget. The Director of Senior Services, Mignon Murray, presented the budget to the committee. She discussed collaborations in which senior services engaged with other departments and needs assessment that is being conducted right now. This needs assessment will be completed in the fall of 2024. The committee discussed the ongoing construction at the Cooper Center for Active Living, which will be a hub for senior services and is now slated to open in the fall of 2025. The committee also discussed how staffing will evolve as a result of the opening of the Cooper Center. The biggest change in the budget was for an Assistant Director of Programs and Services. Transportation service goes out to bid this year, and in September, the criteria for NUMO changed due to budgetary constraints. Ultimately, the committee voted 6-0 to approve the budget of $929,560, which is an increase of 9.78% from last year's original budget. Thank you.
Okay, any questions on the Senior Services budget? Comments? Okay, the proposed amount is $929,560. Can I get a motion?
Move approval.
Council Krinsman moves approval, seconded by Council Leary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Next item is
Veterans Services.
The Programs and Services Committee met on Wednesday, May 8th to discuss the budget for the Veteran Services Department. Seth Bai, the Director of Veteran Services, introduced the topic and acknowledged that not a lot changes from one year to the next. The committee did discuss the work of Veteran Services and the outreach and assistance that's provided by the department to veterans with attention to ways to help with outreach. The committee was focused on ways to help make further outreaches. So ultimately, the committee vote was 6-0 to approve the budget, which is $210,729. And this is an increase of 4% over last year's budget.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead. All set? Any questions on Veteran Services?
Move approval.
Okay, Council Krinsman has moved approval, seconded by Council Kalis. Proposed amount is $210,729. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Historic Newton.
That's me. All right, so this was also on April 18th, as the other ones that I presented were, and fairly straightforward presentation. As you can see in the report, there's been a number of accessibility improvements, not in the sense of ADA, but just gates being opened and things like that to the public, which are exciting for those who are near those places. And there was a question about wish list items, and it was mentioned that there are still a few of the minor projects, repairs projects that could be done, various outdoor signs projects could be accelerated and so forth. The only thing that I particularly wanted to note, which I did mention in the report, but just for clarity, is that the budget looks as if there's been a decrease, but it was clarified for us during that meeting that that is really, it's a level funded budget, but there was something got changed in health insurance. And so that made it look, because it's a relatively small department, as if there was a decrease, but functionally it has been level funded.
All set?
Yes.
Any questions on Historic Newton? Seeing none, the proposed amount is $319,712. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Council Humphrey, seconded by Council Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, next item are the Newton Public Schools. If we could get a report on the general budget, and then there are two resolutions for us for consideration. I would ask the folks that propose these that please have a spokesperson ready to explain the rationale and the thinking behind it. But for right now, Council Krinsman, are you going to give the report?
Sure. Superintendent Dr. Anna Nolan presented the school budget to a joint meeting of the Finance and Programs and Services Committees on Thursday, May 9th. Dr. Nolan's presentation was praised by several counselors present and delivered a tremendous amount of information, provided clear insight into the thinking and approach behind many of the school department's initiatives. This year, there are no cuts in the proposed school budget. The presentation highlighted funding wins as well as challenges. Counselors inquired about funding challenges such as an arbitration decision and possible regulatory changes to the METCO program. Counselors also sought additional details into various programs and the impact and reliance upon fees in the school budget. Ultimately, the Programs and Services straw vote was unanimous in support, 7-0, of the proposed budget of $282,647,007. I believe that the Finance Committee vote was unanimous to 6-0, but perhaps Councilor Malachy can confirm that.
I think we had 7-0 in finance. It was either 7 or 8.
Okay. They were unanimous votes in both committees, and
Correct.
the only thing I wanted to point out is that the figure that Counselor Krinsman gave you, the 282,647,007 includes the appropriation from the school stabilization fund of $4,100,000. So that is
Correct.
included in that figure, just so everybody is clear on that. All right, so that's the general request of for the Newton Public Schools. Now we have two resolutions. Resolution number 11, it's proposed by Council Danberg, Downs, and Getz. And the substance of it is requesting that the mayor allow for up to a 12-year contract for providing electric school buses, given that a longer contract period than the usual 5-year city contracts will likely initially be needed in order to change an all-electric fleet. So who wants to talk a little bit about this? Councilor Danberg?
Thank you.
Councilor
Mr. Chair.
Danberg, and please, if you could do at least me one favor, I would appreciate knowing why we're being asked to do this now as part of the budget process, as opposed to maybe not just the regular, docket and committee and all of that. Is there a timing issue? So if you could just speak to that.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Yes, there is a timing issue. It's not incumbent at the moment that we deal with this, but I thought that this would be an appropriate time to bring it up. It is not necessarily a financial issue, because if we can provide, I set a 12-year contract because there was one company that was interested, that I mentioned, the Highland Fleets Company, has expressed interest in a 12-year contract for electric buses, because there's a considerable capital outlay, as you can imagine, in providing a fleet of buses for a school system as large as Newton. And in order for a company to be willing to make that kind of a capital outlay, they don't want to do it and have the contract stop or be canceled in 3 to 5 years. And they would need, this company expressed that they would need 12 years in order to make that type of an outlay. So since we are discussing capital outlays now, and since the school contracts do need a considerable amount of time to be thought about in advance of being negotiated, I chose to bring it up now. If there's some reason that you don't want that it's the will of the committee that they not take it up now, I will withdraw it. But if I could read the, or at least explain the bullet items to the council, I would appreciate that. Another reason that I'm bringing it up now is that all of the volunteer folks in the city that are working on the climate action plan have been asking if we could please discuss this with the mayor, and have her be aware of the importance of bringing this up early enough so that it can be negotiated and a contract of that length thought about. This is not something typical the city does. Our contracts are typically 3 to 5 years. And I don't know, in my tenure here, I don't remember of any contract, maybe Councillor Gentile or Councillor Baker, you might remember something of that length, but I don't. We are requesting that the mayor consider allowing up to a 12-year contract for providing electrical school buses, given that a longer contract than the usual 5-year contract would likely be needed in order to change to an all-electric fleet, which is what we are looking to change to.
Okay.
Any questions, I'd be happy to take.
So do you or anyone else that docketed this know where we are with the current bus contract? We usually do 5. We always have to authorize 5 years because it seems to be most beneficial. We usually get that request. Do we know where we're at with that current? contract?
I'm not sure what year we're in of the current contract.
So the contract goes to June 30th of 2027. So with that information, it just seems to me that we have plenty of time to discuss it, going through the regular committee process, because they obviously have to live with this contract for what, 3 more years, right? So,
Maybe out.
okay. So anyway, let's see what others think,
Okay,
okay?
yeah, no,
Counsel-
I'm willing to hear what everybody else has to say, and I think Councilor Downs has a
Councilor Downs?
comment.
Thank you, Chair. I will remind my colleagues and those of you who haven't been here for quite as long that this was something that Councilor Norton used to bring up at every single school budget hearing, because it is part of the budget, and it is something that affects not just emissions, but our children's health. Diesel buses, which is what we use, tend to recirculate particulate matter of particularly harmful particulate matter inside the bus. So it's not just an environmental, but also a health issue. And the reason this needs a considerable amount of planning time as well as a longer contract time is because, as Councilor Danberg mentioned, it will take some investment, not just in the buses, but in the charging infrastructure. And one of the challenges that the city faces and is still struggling with is where those buses will not only be charged, but parked when they're not in use. So this is something that we need to start planning for sooner rather than later. And I see no harm in passing this resolution tonight and giving the mayor notice that we are watching.
Councilor Laredo, President Laredo.
So I certainly want to thank the makers of this resolution for bringing this to our attention. It's an important concern. I know we've discussed it before. I share Chair Gentile's concerns about us having a discussion in the context of a resolution, particularly when a contract's at least a couple of years away. And again, it's a very laudable goal. I would be concerned about entering into a 12-year contractual obligation on behalf of the city without really a very robust discussion of what that means. Because, lots of things, there's a reason we don't have contracts beyond 3 or perhaps 5 years. Because there's risk involved in locking ourselves into something for an extended period of time when technologies can change, companies can go out of business, a whole host of issues could arise. So I think this should be docketed again, but I think it should be docketed in our regular docket process so that we can have a full discussion with the school department, with our sustainability folks, with our financial people, so we understand the full implications of what we're doing. I, for one, am just not prepared to vote on a resolution like this right now without being armed with far more information. And again, I say that with respect for the idea that you've put this issue forward, which I think is important. I just think we need to do our work a little bit differently than doing it via resolution. Thank you.
Council Humphrey and then Lobovitz.
Thank you. So this, of course, would appear to be a non-binding advisory budget resolution. And my recollection is that under statute, we would have to have a docket item through the normal process to do even a 5-year contract, let alone a 12-year contract. So regardless of this particular resolution, if there were some proposal along these lines, it would come back to us definitively as a regular docket item. And I'm guessing we don't even have the authority to docket that. I think that would have to come from the administration.
Okay. Council Lobovitz.
So Counselor Humphrey has addressed my question. Is there any other clarification on that point? Is that accurate? I guess I'm asking what Counselor Humphrey stated.
Well, typically, again, as has been stated, our contracts, if it's 1, 2, or 3 years, the city can enter into them. If it's beyond 3, they come to us for approval. And to Council Danberg's earlier point, correct me if I'm wrong, Council Baker, I don't remember anything more than 5 years. But usually it's initiated by the administration or from, the school department, and it's usually bus contracts. Except we just recently had I should take that back because we just gave them an approval for a 5-year contract to hire substitutes. So, but it's usually initiated on that end. Not that you can't initiate it from here as something to look into. We do that all the time.
Thank you.
Counselor Mickley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my perspective of just reading the language here is that it's really just allowing for up to a 12-year contract. It's not requiring it. It's really just opening up the discussion on an opportunity to use electric buses as part of our school contracting. And it's just putting this issue on the radar of the mayor and the administration and creating a public dialogue on this issue. So for those reasons, I will support this.
Council Albright.
Yeah, I don't mind supporting the resolution, but I do think that we can docket a discussion on it, as President Laredo said, just to raise the issue. While it comes from the mayor, of course, without our pushing the issue a little bit, it might not come to the fore. So I think it should be, we can have this resolution as well as a docket item to bring it forward. Thanks.
Okay. Counselor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just throw my support behind the comments of Councilors Mickley and Albright. I don't think there's any harm in supporting this resolution, and I am very happy with Councilor Danberg, Downs, and Getz bringing this to our attention because it is something that we've discussed for quite a few years, and I think maybe this will kick it to a level where it gets more attention. And it is, I think, essential that we have this docket for discussion as well. So I'm prepared to support it for those reasons. Thank you.
Council Baker.
I appreciate all that. Again, I think that this is best discussed where we can have some input from people who are expert on the sort of life cycle of these vehicles and the timing of contracts. So I'm not going to support it simply because I'm not sure I'm well enough informed to make a judgment in the budget process.
Okay, anyone else? All right, I am going to ask for a show of hands because I believe we may have, this may be a triple. Yes, no, abstain. So all those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I count 18. Yep. What, Cassidy? I had 18 too, yes. All right, so any in opposition? Abstentions? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 abstentions. And Counselor Krinsman. So 18 and 6, 24. You got it right. Okay, so the resolution passes.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to also mention that I would plan to bring forward a docket item, and anyone that would be interested in joining me on the docket item, I'd be happy to have.
Okay, next is resolution number 12, which is brought to us by Councilors Bixby, Grossman, Kalis, Krinsman, Mickley, and Oliver. So someone needs to talk to us about phone pouches. Who's going to do that? See, this is the beauty of having some youth on the council. I don't think last year or many years prior to that would we have heard about a resolution on phone pouches. So it's great to have you younger folks.
Thank you. This resolution, I believe, is sponsored by the parents of school age and about to be school age children. So, I think we all see the impact that phones have had, and especially, as mentioned in the resolution, the impact of the COVID school closures on students' phone use. And this was largely prompted by the fact that Day Middle School has had a very successful pilot of these phone pouches, which allow for the phones to go in the pouch at the beginning of the school day and stay in the pouch for the entire school day so that they're not disruptive to the learning environment, and then be opened as the student leaves school at the end of the day so that they can use their device as needed. And because of the timing of this pilot, which was done this year and then presented to the school committee at the beginning of this month after the NPS budget was crafted and passed by the school committee, continuation of the pilot and expansion to the other middle schools was not able to be included. And so this request is to have either ARPA funds, which seem like a very appropriate use for these, as they were intended to go to impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, or other funding as available to be allocated for the continuation at Day and the expansion to the other middle schools for this calendar year. And I believe that this is a small investment to allow this entire budget to really be accessed by our middle schoolers, so that they do not have the distractions of technology, which is brand new and which their brains are not quite prepared to set aside on their own and enable that to happen.
So who controls the pouch?
It closes. So the school committee heard a great presentation from the Day Middle School principal, I think May 6th. So anybody can review that, but it closes. And when it's closed, then it's closed for the day. And then at the end of the day, they can touch it to something on the wall and near the exit of the school, and it opens the pouch, a magnet or something, and it allows them to then have the phone for the bus or, their walk home to be safe, correspond with their parents directly.
But the student keeps control of the pouch
The
in the
student
phone
can
in
have
the
their
pouch.
pouch in their locker, or I guess in their backpack or wherever, but they can't use the device because it's locked in the pouch.
So that somehow this magical pouch keeps it locked and they can't get at it.
Yes.
And then okay. Interesting. Councilor Laredo.
So I must say this technology is really interesting. I'm so glad that Councilor Bixby and my other colleagues raised it. Maybe if it's really successful, we adopt it for the city council meetings and see if we do that during our meetings. I don't know how well that will go over, but that's for another day. I'll be fully supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Kalis.
I love this idea. Counselor Bixby brought it up, and I thought to myself, this sounds very familiar because I've been to 2 musicals where they actually took your phone, put it in a pouch, you got to keep the pouch, you walk out and you just open it, or you go through this little electronic thing. So it's very easy and it's already being used. And this is just a great way of helping out our kids and teachers. And I think this would be fabulous. So I'm fully supportive. Thank you.
Councilor Lucas.
All right. Thank you, Counselor Bixby, for presenting this resolution. I will support it. You said the school committee meeting was on May 6th when they discussed this? Is that what you said?
Don't hold me to that data. My
Okay,
apologies.
that's fine. Have there been any talks about expanding this to, I don't know, high schools?
So again, may I respond?
Yes.
Again, the presentation there was also encompassed conversations about the high schools, which I think are using sort of shoe racks on the back of classroom doors, as we might have seen in our tour at North. So I believe that is a piece of it that's being piloted in certain classrooms and would not necessarily be included in this, but as a part of the overall discussion about technology. And there's been some interesting innovations about conversations in the elementary school level with students as well. So there's a lot that's happening to try and address technology use. So this is one piece of supporting that.
Thank you. Well, I hope we don't need them in elementary schools. First graders with smartphones, I don't know. But thank you.
Mr. Yo, did you want to speak on this? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I brought my cell phones. I do have some good news, well, hopefully good news to report. When Mayor Fuller heard about this issue at school committee, she brought it back, we discussed it, and at the same time, we began working with Senator Cream on potential earmarks for the state budget. And we did work with Senator Cream. She did include $60,000 in the Senate Ways and Means budget, which is hopefully in the works to be approved soon for this mental health and awareness and implementation in the middle schools, including potential phone pouch implementation. So I know that the superintendent, if you listen to the school committee discussion, still had some issues to resolve, with the remaining middle schools, but we are hopeful that this $60,000 makes it through the budget process over the next few months, and this money will come to Newton Public Schools because I think we all agree it's probably for middle schools. This is probably a very good thing. So I'm not sure about the council, but I won't comment on that. So anyways, we're in alignment with this. Thank you.
Okay. Can we, Council Danberg, I'm sorry.
Just a couple of words on an article that I just read in the New York Times a few days ago. I think it might have been in the Sunday Times, talking about specifically middle schoolers, and that it's not so important that schools keep control of cell phones and children's ability to get at their social media accounts in high school. It's much more important in middle school because this is a time when kids are kind of in the throes of finding themselves and really addicted to keeping up with their social media and scrolling through, seeing what anybody is saying about anybody else. And that middle school is the time when we need to pay attention to this. So I think it's a bargain at any price, and I think that this is a great idea.
All right, why don't we get on the record with the vote? Then I have a couple of other suggestions because we are at a point where we could wrap this up tonight if folks wanted to. So, but first, can we vote on the resolution? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
To a second? Second by Council Oliver. So, motion has been made and approved. All those in favor of resolution number 12 on phone pouches, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Before we even did that, I think that you have what the administration's reply would be. Hopefully that is satisfactory, which will take care of that resolution. The prior resolution that was approved
I don't think that we need to hear back from the administration at this time because we talked about, docketing an item and doing some work. So we don't have to be concerned about that. There is one resolution left. It's on Parks and Rec. Even though we already voted that budget, it's still an order that we need to take up. And depending on that vote, we'll be able to figure out if we're going to go ahead and move the entire budget in committee of the whole, and then we'll go into the full council. Yes, Council Humphrey?
Are we voting first on the NPS budget or the allocation?
Oh, we got to vote for yes, we got to vote on that now that we've settled the two resolutions. You're
I'll
correct.
move approval.
All right, Council, thank you. Counselor Princeman moves approval of the school.
$282,647,007.
That's it. Second, any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the proposed budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, now the last item is resolution number 10, which is
I think it's probably not 10 because I think there's two that have been labeled 10. So it's probably.
Yes, I do apologize. I didn't realize there were just 10 at the last meeting, so it should go 11, 12,
10B.
13.
Go,
So
we can
13.
go, we've already done 11 and 12, so we're
13.
gonna say this is gonna have to be 10B. Okay? So we don't mess up or else we could make it 13. You want to make it 13?
Yeah, I can make it 13.
All right, Cassidy, whatever you say. Resolution number 13, Councilors Block, Malachi, Downs, Humphrey, Kelly, and Wright. Who wants to present? Council Block?
I'll initiate the presentation and Counselor Malachi will supplement what I have to say. Symbols are really important to our society, and sometimes items come before this body that are truly symbolic. And I think turf fields and how we vote on them is one of those items. This is a national problem. It's getting national attention, and it has a local application. I voted in favor of a similar item last week because of personal involvement in my family, of my son playing as a goalie on the earlier version of this synthetic turf, and how much he disliked playing on it. It's easy to think of this in bureaucratic terms. How many fields do we have? How many fields do we need? How much do we spend on maintenance with one type or another type? How many injuries do we get with one type or another type? And behind this all are the children who play on it. So I ask you, when you think about this resolution, to think about those kids. And with that, Councilor Malachi.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't be so eloquent. I just wanted to hit on some of the points that were raised today in the onslaught of email information we got in an attempt to avert apparently a yes vote on a non-binding item. It was pointed out that the materials for the Albemarle field have already been ordered. That's true. There was a purchase order issued. Essentially, it seems like a purchase order was issued without this item, without the project having been approved by the Conservation Commission. They had a preliminary presentation given to them in April, and it's probably going to come back in June. So either the administration was so confident of that it was going to be a rubber stamp that they went ahead and signed up for a binding contract to buy I believe it's approximately 1.5 million for the materials. Or hopefully, this, as Nick Reed told me, a purchase order is theoretically cancelable. We also heard from the Friends of Albemarle, who were very concerned about not doing artificial turf would cause delays and things like the walking tracks and so forth. Back when the Community Preservation Committee heard this, the request for the funding for all the rest of the Fields project, they were told that they were independent things, that the CPC could confidently approve the funding for the rest of the Fields project, and the turf could, the multi-purpose field could stay natural grass, or it could be artificial turf, but it wouldn't affect the rest of the project. The CPC was also told that the city council would get to vote on it, and they expressed a lot of concerns about the artificial turf aspect, but recognized that they could not have any authority over that. But they were told by Mr. Perez de Marisi and Commissioner Banks that the city council would be voting on it. And of course, as we know, that turned out not to be true. The information about recycling we got, again, it's no actual proof of it. And the statement that half of it is going to the still unnamed facility that's producing plastic lumber. We still don't know where that is. And the half that is going to apparently be cut up into materials for batting cages and other indoor uses is not real recycling. It's just cutting it up and shipping it off to a whole lot of multiple locations where it will continue to wear out and be somebody else's waste in the future. So I think, and I'd just like to say again, anything that, every artificial turf field that we cause to be created now is going to be future city council's problem in about 12 or 13 years. Either the state will perhaps ban use of public funds to install it, and then we would be dealing with how to get rid of something that we can't ship off to a supplier and have them deal with it, or we'd be committed to replacing it every 12 years into infinity. And at some point, if we ever want to go back to natural grass, there's the extra expense of restoring a field area that has been baked in the sun for however many years into something where grass will again grow. So thank you.
Did I hear you correctly in saying that this was non-binding?
All of our resolutions are non-binding. It's a chance to express our opinion on something.
Oh, all right, but if we're voting, if you vote to approve it, you're requesting that the field be removed from the capital improvement plan. I don't consider that to be non-binding. It's a pretty, it's an action. And whether you agree with it or not.
I think I stand corrected on that. I don't know how the conflict between something not being in the capital improvement plan and the ability of the mayor to spend ARPA money on it, I don't know how that conflict would be resolved.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Kalis.
So I'm not going to support this. I think when we talked last time, I said that we just didn't have as much information as I thought we needed. So I think in part, some of the onslaught of information was because I asked the administration some specific questions and asked for some detail, and I think they provided it. It was what I needed to see in that they are recycling. They did get a note from the recycler or how everything's being recycled, and that was important to me. I think it's important for the mental health of our kids to be playing and to have the facilities. I think that, you know, the question about the turfs being too hot, I think the majority of the play is going to be in the fall and the spring. And there will be precautions taken in the summer when it is used. So I feel comfortable in that way. I think to Counselor Block, you're absolutely right. This is a moral issue. This is, and so it's hard for me, but that's where I come down, and I'm hoping there'll be a better solution in the future, but I can't support this at this time.
Counselor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also will not be supporting this resolution. And it comes down to me about balance. Many of us who've been on the council for a few years remember there was a lot of people upset about the quality of our fields and the availability of our fields and the space. And I think I spent about 3 years on that, working with advocates to sort of to first increase the budget. Clearly, the city has a problem, city of our size, population. We don't have enough fields, and it's just not practical for us to rely on grass fields, which in itself are very intensive. And we have also used integrated pest management, which included some herbicides to keep them in plain condition. So there's that balance as well. I'm just not prepared to push out this important field, which will make a big improvement in terms of more of our athletes, our young athletes, school-age athletes, as well as adults, to be able to use the fields year-round with minimum amount of effort and cost to the city. And the other thing is the real problem is the huge amount of single-use plastics that we use. It's much bigger problem than turf fields, which at least we know are getting partially recycled. And I think there are also hopes for making improvements to the ability to make this stuff more recyclable. The newer fields are much better in terms of the environment than the older fields. And so I think technology will help us with that. But if you want to get plastics out of the environment, we should be banning all single-use plastics and really working towards that. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Albright and then Counselor Lipoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to supplement what Councilor Leary just said, it isn't so much the number of people that want to use the fields, it's the number of sports and the fact that we have girls' sports and boys' sports, and we have youth sports, and we have the number of sports. When I was growing up in Newton, we didn't have lacrosse, we didn't have soccer, we didn't have Frisbee. So there are just more sports, more alternatives. And I don't want to have our children lose the opportunity to play all those sports at all the various ages. So I will not be supporting this.
Okay, Counselor Lipoff.
I'll align myself with the great comments of Councilors Albright, Kalis, and Leary, and just add one more piece to the puzzle, that the intensity of the rain incidences that are occurring now render most grass fields unusable. Add that to all of the comments and reasons by the speakers before me, and that's why I'm aligning myself. Thank you.
Counselor Bixby.
So
Yeah.
I find this issue to be so complicated. And I'm speaking tonight with so much of my heart on each of these sides. My children love soccer and play soccer so much, and we are out on the fields all the time. And I know how crucial it is for children to be able to play and for their mental health. And they have come home from turf fields with absolutely coated in little green blades of plastic, because it is a sort of single-use product, and that those blades attach themselves and come home and end up in our washing machine and in the water stream. I've had to pick blades of plastic out of children who have skinned knees on turf fields in Brookline. And literally today, a friend of my son's came home with an infected knee and bruised bone from a playing field, a turf field accident in a game this weekend. So I will be supporting this resolution because I have to speak for the parents who believe in sports and believe in how much they matter, and also how much of the long-term environmental impacts and the immediate health impacts that these things have. It will be 89 degrees on Wednesday. We have a soccer game that night. And so the heat impacts are also a big piece of this. And I just have to believe that there are other ways that we can tackle this problem without putting down plastic fields. So I really appreciate this, and I appreciate the really good people on all sides who really believe in making what's best for our children happen. And I hope we can keep the discussion there as we have tonight here, but we can keep it there in the community and know that we're all trying what's best for the kids. And that means different things to different people, and we're weighing different pieces. But that's where I'm coming down tonight.
Okay, thank you. Council Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Councilors Block and Maliki for reminding us of the issues that we need to continue to talk about as we move forward with this, and not forget them once the vote or installation is completed. As I said earlier, we had the same exact discussion 12 years ago. And between then and now, there were no continuing discussions. I think we need to continue those discussions. But I believe that it's important for us to install this carpet at Albemarle and make these services available to kids, not only for Newton North, but for all of the community organizations. Thank you.
There are a couple others that want to speak. I just wanted, for the benefit maybe, well, of my colleagues, but also anybody that may be watching this, I want to make people aware, I double checked with the powers to be today. There are no plans for any additional turf fields in the city of Newton. Now, obviously that can change, but there is absolutely nothing in the works. Albemarle will give Newton North access to two turf fields, as does Newton South, which is important to some people about trying to make sure that both high schools have two fields. Council Maliki is correct. There was a contract that was signed back in January, but there was nothing nefarious about it. It was done in order to sign on to a 2023 state contract that would save us a significant amount of money, because we were aware, not we, the administration was aware that there were going to be significant price increases. So knowing that the council did not have a vote because these were ARPA funds, and we don't vote on ARPA funds. That is why they felt that they had the authority to do so, and they were trying to save money. I think most of you know we have a Parks and Recreation Commission. There's one person from each ward, and they discussed this at length. And my understanding is that the Parks and Recreation Commission, which really has oversight over the physical fields, and they voted unanimously in favor of this. Council Block.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out, sort of in a way, what's obvious. The size of a soccer field on grass or on turf is the same size. Whatever size is necessary for the ages of the children playing. A coach of ours many years ago explained that the biggest advantage to turf fields is that you can play on them when weather creates unplayable conditions on grass fields. And that's a significant advantage for practicing and sometimes in games. But if games are postponed and rescheduled, then both teams are equally disadvantaged. So I don't see this as a big, we're being disadvantaged as a community if we restrain our building of turf fields versus others. I think quite the contrary. We're being thoughtful and careful with our children's health. I think if we dedicated ourselves to a maintenance program for our grass fields, they'd be in a lot better shape and they'd be a lot more usable and the kids would be healthier. Thanks.
Okay, next I had Council Lobovitz and then Wright and Krinsman.
Thank you, Chair. So most of the discussion this evening has been focused on Newton and what's happening in Newton and our fields and of course our children. But I don't think enough emphasis has been placed on our exporting, and I'm going to use the word exporting these products to other places in the country. In this case, I believe it's Pennsylvania. Is that right? Yeah. I think if we were to think of it in a different way, if a school system in Pennsylvania had this problem and they shipped all of this material to Newton, Massachusetts, I'm wondering how we would feel about that. So I think we have to look at this in a bigger way, in our responsibility to other communities, not just ourselves. And I just think that looking at the bigger picture, we have to do that, and we have a responsibility to others beyond Newton. So I will be voting in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. So Boston has banned all new artificial fields. There are other towns that are doing that. I don't see why we can't, and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Council Krinsman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Want to agree with the thoughtful comments of Councilor Kalis and Leary and Albright and Lipoff. Like Councilor Leary said, a number of us have been working for several years on our recreational fields, several years. And we've been working with the administration to get more resources poured into the fields, get our fields in better condition, because we were severely underfunding them and not coming close to meeting the needs of our children. Unfortunately, a necessary component of that plan to bring our fields into appropriate condition and to provide the appropriate level of resources for our children does include turf fields. Turf fields give far more playing time and access, as a number of people have said, due to weather, wear and tear, and other reasons. And so I'm not going to be supporting the resolution, not because I think turf fields are better than grass fields. I would love to have enough grass fields for all our children to play all the sports they want to play on. But we don't have that space, and it's been demonstrated that we're severely under-resourced. And so, like I said, unfortunately, the turf fields are a necessary component to bring our city to the level it needs to be. I have children who play soccer, who play lacrosse, who play regularly on the turf fields, and they would much rather play than have every game be rained out and every practice be rained out. So I'm not going to be supporting the resolution. Thank you.
Council Grossman.
Thank you. So Counselor Krinsman and the other counselors he mentioned who commented before him summarized my overall feelings very well. I wanted to add 2 quick points. The first is that I really appreciate what Counselor Lebovitz had to say about thinking about other communities. And I struggle with this a lot. And Counselor Leary has actually educated me a lot when we're thinking about waste and where our waste goes in general. We ship our waste all over the world. We create so much waste, all of us, and we ship it across the country and we ship it overseas. And I was reading an article a few weeks ago looking at pictures of a desert in South America where our clothes that people donate are literally just lying in piles out there. Clothes that we're sending to Africa are undermining local business and small business entrepreneurs from being able to get their own economy around creating clothing off the ground. And I mean, I think about it every time I have a birthday party for my kids. As Counselor Laredo or President Laredo said, I had a bat mitzvah this weekend. Can you imagine how much waste is generated by these parties? I mean, it's tremendous. It really is. And Counselor Leary and others have really made me think about it. And we don't have great solutions for these things yet. I think in previous conversations over this term, especially hearing from the mayor, we're going to be forced to look at it in the face more and more, which I think is a really good and very important thing. And at the same time, when these questions come, like so many things in our lives, I'm always thinking about sort of benefit and risk. Obviously, the more common sort of cost benefit analysis, but with respect to health, you put your kid through a procedure, you're thinking about benefit and risk. What are they going to get out of it? What am I putting them through? I think about it every time I put my kids in the car. When I buckle my baby into a car seat and think to myself, I'm doing this for convenience, not because it's good for her health, but I believe that the benefit of getting wherever we need to go and whatever activities I'm shuttling the kids to is worth it for the risk that I'm strapping them into this, device where they're more likely to get harmed than almost anything else that we do. I think about it with respect to food. I mean, I'm sitting here eating Jolly Ranchers. That's not, we do things all the time that we know have health downsides, and each of us draws those lines at different places. For me, as I started, I come out where those other colleagues began. But I just wanted to explain a little bit more of my thinking because I think the comments on the other side are really valid and important. I'm glad we're having the conversation, but I don't support the resolution. Thanks.
Okay, President Laredo, and then maybe we can take a vote. No, okay. Council Mickley will be next.
I'll try to be very brief here. First of all, I just want to commend us for a moment. This is exactly the type of thoughtful, deliberate, heartfelt debate that we should be having as a city council. Really, every single person who's spoken this evening on an issue that clearly many care passionately about are doing it thoughtfully with considerable, thought as to what they're saying, why they're advocating for a particular position. And this is how we do our work best. And so I just want to thank everyone for that kind of thoughtful debate. With all that said, I am kind of come down against this resolution. And I do so because I think like Councilor Leary, Albright, Kalis, others have said, it's all about balance. And on balance, I think it is more important at this juncture to provide adequate and appropriate athletic fields for our children. Those uses are critical, but I do so recognizing that there are trade-offs. And this is exactly the type of trade-off that sometimes you have to make. Reasonable people can come out reasonably different ways. But I'm going to be voting against the resolution. Thank you.
Council Mickley?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. like Counselor Bixby, I feel very torn about this. After the vote Thursday night, where I abstained, I felt like I had a pit in my stomach after that vote. And I was driving to Pennsylvania and I thought, oh, maybe I should call Counselor Maliki and she can show me where this warehouse is and I can go visit it and see what's going on. And then I started making calls and talking to people, and my cousin happens to work for the city of Philadelphia's stormwater management department. And I was grilling him all weekend about turf versus grass, what drains better, what's better for the environment. I reached out to the Friends of Albemarle board director and asked her questions and really tried to get my head around this issue. And I think the comments on both sides resonate very strongly with me, but perhaps the comment that resonates the most is what Councilor Krinsman said of this body working on this issue for several years and coming to this conclusion, and me feeling like one weekend of calls and research and Googling is not preparing me to stop a train that already seems like it's going forward. And given that there's the local support from the Friends of Albemarle group, given that this would basically ask to stop those efforts, I feel split on the resolution. Bullets 3 and 4, I could fully support. The plan to maintain natural grass, minimize artificial turf. I don't want to give a signal that we're going to just do turf everywhere. That's really important. We don't give that signal. But to stop this from going forward with just a weekend of research is not something I yet feel equipped to do. So for that reason, I'm not ready to support this. Thank you.
Okay, Council Larry, did you want to speak?
I'll be very brief.
Okay.
I also just wanted to mention I participated in the Integrated Pest Management Committee that did work on this as well. And it took a lot of effort and it was quite a bit of controversy to do 2 trials with using pesticides, which I heard was a vast improvement to the quality of the fields. So that's just another thing about it. And I was very taken with Councilor Lobovitz's comments about where does this stuff go? Well, our trash goes to Millbury, our recycling goes to Avon, and I'm not sure where all that sediment from our ponds is going to, which is considered, I think, fairly, some of it's hazardous. It's going to go, the EPA requires it to go to one place, so it can't be spread out like what happened with PFAS. So it's just something I hope we continue to think about these things on other subjects because they are very important. Thank you.
Okay, can we take a vote? All right, pardon? Yes. Roll call or hands? Okay. All right, so it's a resolution number 13 on artificial turf resolution. All those in favor we're taking a roll call vote. We'll obviously vote in the affirmative and those opposed to the resolution in the negative. Mr. Assistant Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Counselor Albright,
No.
Counselor Baker. Counselor Baker. Counselor Bigsby,
Yes.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
No.
Counselor Gentile,
No.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
No.
Counselor Grossman,
No.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
No.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Krinsman,
No.
Counselor Leary,
No.
Counselor Lipoff,
No.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Abstain.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor McKinley,
No.
Counselor Oliver,
No.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
President Laredo,
No.
Resolution fails 13-10 and 1 abstention.
Okay. All right, so we had already voted on Parks and Rec, so there's no need to do that again. So that concludes the committee of the whole business. We have to take some votes. So I just want to check to see if there's anything that maybe I am missing. But I think we've conducted all of our business except to take the remaining votes. Any questions? What I'm going to ask for is several votes that are part of the appropriation schedule rather than just the one bottom line. So I believe everyone has this, right? We got a handout on the mayor's recommended budget as the general fund and so forth, but at the rear of it is the breakout of the all of the general fund, community preservation and so forth. So I want to go through this in order to report out to the full city council. And again, I'm going to need some help with motions and seconds. We also need to vote on the CIP, the supplemental CIP, and I'm also going to ask for a vote to approve the spending limits on the revolving funds, okay, which are also in your book. Again, what we're doing there is we're not approving any special amount. We are just authorizing the different revolving funds to spend up to the limit that's in the schedule, okay? So can I get a motion to approve the general fund request, which is $525,419,465. Motion to approve by Council Leary, seconded by Councilor Danberg. These can all be done on a voice vote in committee of the whole. All those in favor of that item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion passes unanimously. The second is the appropriation request from the Community Preservation Fund of $5,135,060. Can I have a motion on that? Council Albright moves approval, seconded by Council Oliver. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passes, that item passes unanimously. Next is the Stormwater Fund, which has been recommended at $5,561,408. Can I get a motion? Motion by Councilor Downs, seconded by Council Lobovitz. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. The Sewer Fund, $34,595,837. Motion is made by Council Kalis, seconded by Council Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Last item is the Water Fund, which is proposed at $28,318,883. Can I get a motion? Councilor Leary moves approval. Councilor Lucas seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously for a total appropriation of all funds of $599,030,653. Can I have a motion to approve the appropriation of all funds? Motion made by Councilor Grossman, seconded by Councilor Danberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Can I have a motion on the capital improvement plan, the 5-year CIP? Can I have a motion? Motion by Council Downs, seconded by Council Grossman. All those in favor, please say aye.
Pardon? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes unanimously. And the supplemental CIP. Motion by Counsel Leary, seconded by Counsel Lucas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Well, right, I didn't say that. All right, I mentioned it. And the last item is a motion to approve the revolving fund limits that are listed in the schedule. Councilor Downs moves approval. Council Albright seconds it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstent? Okay, Council Oliver is opposed. And any abstentions? Okay, so that passes 23 to with 1 in opposition. That concludes the work of the Committee of the Whole. I want to second what Council Laredo said about you know, the demeanor and the quality of the conversation. I want to thank you all for being here on time and working through things so that, you know, we got this. I was not sure if we would be spending a third day or not. So I think we all appreciate that, but I also think we did our job, we did our work, we did a thorough review. So for everyone's part in that, I want to thank you for doing that. And I'm going to ask at this time, and also, he's a good man to have around. He prevents most of my screw-ups. He doesn't catch them all in time, but he gets most of them. And I was telling him the other day that I wanted him here. I need his help. And I think it's good for him personally, professionally, because he's really growing into the job. I work with the best, and David Wilkinson. I don't know if you'll ever be able to totally fill those shoes, because he was a legend. All right, he was a legend. We were lucky to have him, but you were making great progress, and I'm glad to have you. All right, so can I get a motion to adjourn the Committee of the Whole? Council Downs, seconded by Council Oliver. All of those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
my colleagues could take their seats, please. Folks, if you could just grab your seats, please. We are back in full council. We have just a few, what I expect will be quick items this evening. And then I'm going to ask for a suspension of the rules to invite the mayor in to say a few remarks to us at the close of our business. All right. So going to recognize Counselor Gentile to report out docket item for which there is no written report. Counselor Gentile.
President. At this time, I would ask for a suspension of the rules in order to report out some actions that were taken earlier this evening in the committee of the whole for which there is no written report.
All right. Counselor Gentile has asked for a suspension of the rules to report out items for which there's no written report. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed? The ayes have it. Go ahead, please, Counselor Gentile.
So the committee of the whole met last Thursday evening and also this evening. And it was the culmination of a budget season that started several weeks ago, which involved the substantive committees reviewing the proposed budgets for every department in the city. We then met in the committee of the whole these past two nights to review those reports. There were 13 resolutions that were offered by different members of the city council. The mayor's office responded to each of those. And at the conclusion of the committee of the whole, there were several votes that were taken involving the general fund, the community preservation fund, the stormwater fund, the sewer fund, and the water fund. And each of those individually were moved and seconded and approved unanimously. And the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget appropriation schedule as a whole, which totaled $599,030,653, which was the sum of the different areas that I just mentioned, was approved unanimously in the committee of the whole. In addition to that, the committee of the whole voted on the 5-year CIP, the supplemental CIP, and the revolving fund limits that were attached in the budget book. The schedule was in the budget book as to the limits in which those revolving funds could spend. And those items were also approved unanimously by the committee of the whole. And I would at this time wish to move the report.
So I think there are three separate votes we need to take, Chair Gentile. The first would be on 8-24, the second on 194-24, and the third would be the municipal school budget. So if we could do those in those order.
Correct.
All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote on the first, which is capital improvement budget. It's a roll call vote. A yay or aye is in favor of the budget. A no is against the budget. And again, this is a capital improvement budget. Would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker,
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile, Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey, Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly, Counselor Kelly, Counselor Grinsman, Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
The CIP passes 23-0 with one absent.
Thank you. The next item we have before us is 194-24, which is the supplemental capital improvement plan. Again, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. A yay or an aye is in favor of the supplemental capital improvement plan. A no vote is to vote against it. You call the roll, please.
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker,
Aye.
Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz, Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly, Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
The supplemental CIP passes 23-0 with one absent.
And colleagues, our last item of the night is 195-24. This is the fiscal year 2025 municipal school operating budget. Again, with the last two votes, if you're voting aye or yay, you're voting in favor of this budget. If you're voting no, you're voting against it. Please call the roll.
Counselor Albright,
Aye.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
Aye.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Danberg,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Gentile,
Aye.
Counselor Getz,
Aye.
Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Grossman,
Aye.
Counselor Humphrey,
Aye.
Counselor Kalis,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly, Counselor Krinsman,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Maliki,
Aye.
Counselor Mickley,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
and President Laredo.
Aye.
The FY25 budget passes 23-0 with one absent.
So colleagues, we are going to do a couple of other things. I'm going to recognize Vice President Kalis for a motion for reconsideration.
I'd like to move reconsideration.
And do I have a second for reconsideration? Seconded by Counselor Lucas. So let me explain, colleagues, just to be clear what reconsideration is. As I think most of us know, reconsideration means reconsidering our past votes. If you want to affirm what we just voted on, you vote no. If you want to reconsider the items, you vote yes. Everyone clear on that? And again, the reason for this is so we don't have somebody filing a motion for reconsideration tomorrow, so we're back here Wednesday night. So with that, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Albright,
No.
Counselor Baker, Counselor Bigsby,
No.
Counselor Block,
No.
Counselor Danberg,
No.
Counselor Downs,
No.
Counselor Farrell,
No.
Counselor Gentile,
No.
Counselor Getz. No. Counselor Greenberg,
No.
Counselor Grossman,
No.
Counselor Humphrey,
No.
Counselor Kalis, Counselor Kelly, Counselor Krinsman,
No.
Counselor Leary,
No.
Counselor Lipoff,
No.
Counselor Lobovitz,
No.
Counselor Lucas,
Nope.
Counselor Maliki. No. Counselor Mickley,
No.
Counselor Oliver,
No.
Counselor Wright,
No.
and President Laredo.
No.
I believe I'm saying this correctly, so the motion to reconsider fails.
Thank you very much. So in a moment, I'm going to ask Counselors Bixby, Block, and Getz to escort the mayor in to the chamber. First of all, do I have a motion to invite the mayor into the chamber? So moved by Counselor Leary, seconded by Counselor Mickley. Before you all three head out to get the mayor, I want to thank all of us for doing a I thought, very productive budget cycle. I want to thank the chairs and the vice chairs of each committee for running your processes so smoothly. But especially, I want to thank the chair of finance, Counselor Gentile, for leading us so ably in our budget deliberations. So thank you, Counselor Gentile, for your efforts. Appreciate it. All right, and our escort committee can go bring in the mayor, please.
Do you need a suspension of the rules?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you say you needed a suspension of the
I
rules?
thought we got one, didn't we? Yeah, I thought we did. I think we're good. I'm not going to ask what everyone's going to do with their Wednesday night off, but hopefully you spend it with friends and family, maybe taking in a game, something like that. Not budget, obviously. Pardon? I know, but you may do something else on Wednesday. Are the Sox playing Wednesday?
Come to Ward 5. We have a pickleball ball court set up in one of our streets.
This is true. All right. Hello, Matt.
Oh, what a pleasure to be here tonight. I was kind of suspicious that it might be Wednesday night. Let me start with a huge number of thank yous. I want to start with the chair of your finance committee, Lenny Gentile. You can see his years of experience in how he helped manage me the mayor's office, our department heads, and perhaps even some of you in a busy few weeks. Thank you, Counselor. Chairs and vice chairs of the committees, bravo, well done. And all of you, I think I heard President Laredo say it, it was productive number of weeks, starting perhaps back at the Allen House when we were together on a more informal basis, probing questions, thoughtful discussions, pressing us to think harder and do better. President Laredo and Vice President Kalis, you set the tone. Thank you for that. Well, Carol is lucky to have a night off in this busy time, but supported by Scott and Cassidy and the rest of the team in the clerk's office. It's a thing of beauty watching you in an intensely busy period. And I will echo what Counselor Gentile said to Steve Curley. You're not just growing, you're fully grown. Thank you, certainly during this period, but every day of the year, Steve and his team are making sure we're tracking what we said we were going to spend, spending it the way we expected, and keeping all of us alert to anything that might be going amiss. Certainly our team, Jonathan Yo and Maureen Lemieux, it's a big lift. This is number 7 for me. You would think it would get easier, perhaps for the mothers in the room. The second time you give birth, it hurts just as much as the first. It's kind of funny how that works. So it's always a big lift. They're magnificent, they're wise. So much of this depends on the two of you, certainly with Connor and Perry's help, and with a huge shout out to the department heads. They are the ones who actually think this through, look at everything they're doing, every line item, and help not just us be efficient and effective, but it's beyond that. They keep trying new things. They try to continuously improve. We're living in unforgiving times where if you make a mistake, all of us notice and give them some heat, but they're willing to keep trying some new things. And please know they're listening really carefully to each of you, to our residents, to our business people. We're trying to do better and better each year. Couple last thoughts. Budgets are just plain out hard because you're balancing the immediate needs and the long-term goals. You're balancing across departments. You're trying to match our values and what we stand for with the investments and the spending. Certainly, this year was easier than the last 2. And I want to praise 2 unsung heroes, Elizabeth Dromey and Jim Shaughnessy. Over a decade ago, our assessor's office challenged what was across the Commonwealth just the way things were done with how utilities measured and taxed and paid taxes on their properties. And Elizabeth took the lead. She worked with 2 other assessors. And for year after year after year, built the case, changed the minds of the DPU and others. And all of us benefited when last August, the case was all resolved, ending in significant dollars that gave all of us a lot of breathing room and the possibility of doing more than we usually can with our usual amount of new growth. That's the type of employees we have throughout this city. Dedicated, creative, and working for our common good. And hats off to Elizabeth and Jim. And lastly, I'll just say, we have to thank our residents. They are, and our property owners, they are our taxpayers, and it is on their dimes, their pennies, their dollars that we're doing this important work. And I saw a bunch of you around this weekend. There was evidence of it. Certainly city employees and we elected make a difference. But if you think about the Newton South High School 5K, the Waban Village Day, the Festival of the Arts, the Fun Fest, the Historic Newton Tour, and more that was surrounding the people who live here with community and fun. Most of that comes from our residents. And yep, we're trying to be supportive and helpful. But to our community members, we'll keep trying to follow your lead. Again, to all of you, huge thanks. Look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Thank you all.
All right, we have one final act this evening. Counselor Danberg, can I have a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Good night.